The fork slipped from Anna's hand and clattered against the dinner plate, but it wasn't the sound of metal on porcelain that silenced me. It was her words. She looked at me across the table, her eyes steady, almost daring me to react. "I don't believe in monogamy anymore," she said coldly. Her lips curled in a smirk I had never seen before, one that carried defiance instead of love. "I have 3 boyfriends." For a moment, the world tilted. My breath caught in my throat. My body stayed in the chair, but my mind reeled backward through years of whispered promises, morning coffees, shared dreams. Every memory suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else, some stranger's life. 3. Not one mistake, not a single lapse in judgment. 3 men. Parallel lives she had been living while sitting across from me, smiling, laughing, pretending. The silence between us stretched razor-thin. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock on the wall, the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. She was waiting for me to explode, waiting for me to scream, demand answers, or maybe even beg. But instead, I managed only one word. "All right?" Her eyebrows arched, amusement flickering across her face. She leaned back in her chair, tilting her head as though studying an animal in a cage. "That's it?" she asked, almost taunting. "No shouting? No crying?" Inside, I felt like glass shattering into 1,000 pieces. But outside, I stayed calm, stone-faced, motionless. Because sometimes, the quietest response carries more weight than 1,000 words. The glass slipped from Emma's hand and crashed onto the tiled floor, shards scattering like tiny stars across the kitchen. But it wasn't the sound of breaking glass that froze me in place. It was her voice. Calm, cold, unshaken. "David," she said, her tone almost casual, "I don't believe in monogamy anymore. I have 3 boyfriends." 3 words should have been enough to wreck a man. But 3 boyfriends? It felt like the ground opened beneath me, the air rushing from my lungs. I sat there staring at the woman I had once trusted more than anyone in this world. The same woman who used to laugh at my terrible jokes, who held my hand during storms, who whispered promises of forever in the dark. Now she was looking at me like I was disposable, a worn-out book she no longer cared to read. My heart raced. My body screamed to react, to shout, to demand answers, to break down right there. But all I gave her was one word. "Okay." Her eyebrows shot upward, amusement flickering in her eyes. She leaned back, crossing her arms, as if she had been waiting for a scene and was disappointed I wasn't performing. "That's all you have to say?" she asked mockingly. "No begging? No fight?" Inside, I was unraveling, every memory of us unraveling with me. But outside, I stayed calm, because sometimes silence cuts deeper than screams. And that night, in that kitchen filled with broken glass, my silence was the loudest thing I had ever said. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay flat on my back, staring at the ceiling, the shadows shifting with every flicker of the streetlight outside. The bed felt colder than it ever had, though Emma slept only inches away. Her breathing was steady, almost peaceful, as if she hadn't just detonated our marriage hours earlier with 3 words that echoed like a curse in my skull. 3 boyfriends. Not one mistake, not one drunken lapse of judgment. 3. The words circled endlessly in my mind, replaying like a broken record. I turned onto my side, watching her profile in the dim light. She looked so normal, so calm, like the woman I had fallen in love with years ago. But now, Every feature felt unfamiliar. Every breath she took felt like betrayal. My chest tightened as questions stormed inside me. When did it start? Who are they? Do they know about me? The silence between us felt heavier than bricks, pressing down on me until I could barely breathe. I wanted to shake her awake, to scream, to demand answers. But instead, I stayed still. Because deep down, I knew there was nothing she could say that would make the wound any less deep. Her betrayal wasn't just about love. It was about choice. She chose this. She chose them. And as I lay awake in that suffocating silence, I realized something I hadn't admitted until now. The woman beside me was already gone. The next morning, the house looked exactly the same. Sunlight spilling across the kitchen floor, the smell of fresh coffee drifting through the air. But nothing felt the same. Emma walked in, humming softly, her hair tied back, wearing that same careless smile I had seen 1,000 times before. She moved as if the night before had been nothing more than a bad dream, as if she hadn't shattered me with her confession. "Morning," she said casually, reaching for the orange juice. I sat at the table, hands wrapped around a mug I hadn't even touched. My throat was dry, my chest heavy, but I forced my voice to stay calm. "Do they love you?" The question hung in the air like smoke. She froze mid-pour, the carton tilted in her hand. For the first time since her confession, her face changed. Just for a second. A flicker. Guilt? Annoyance? I couldn't tell. Finally, she sighed, setting the juice down. "Love isn't the point," she said flatly. "I want freedom, options. I was tired of pretending I only wanted one man forever." Her words cut sharper than any knife could. I stared at her, really seeing her for the first time. The woman in front of me wasn't the Emma I had married. She wasn't the girl who once promised me forever. She was a stranger wearing her face. And in that moment, beneath all the pain, a seed of clarity began to root. I wasn't going to beg for love she no longer wanted to give. For days after her confession, I moved through the house like a shadow. Emma carried on with her life, smiling at her phone, whispering into it late at night, stepping out with excuses I no longer bothered to question. She believed I was numb, broken, too weak to act. But inside, something else was happening. I was waking up. One Friday evening, while she claimed she was weeding friends, I drove away from the city. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than ever before, my heart pounding with a strange mix of grief and relief. 2 hours later, I pulled into the gravel driveway of the old cabin I'd bought years ago, long before Emma, long before marriage. She never cared for the place, always called it that boring wooden box in the woods. But to me, it was sanctuary. As I unlocked the door and stepped inside, the smell of pine wood and old stone filled my lungs. The silence was different here, not heavy like in our bedroom, not suffocating like in our kitchen. This silence was healing. I sat by the fireplace, lit a small flame, and watched the sparks climb upward. For the first time in years, I thought about the man I used to be. Independent, strong, capable of walking away from anything that poisoned his peace. Somewhere along the way, I had lost that man. Emma's betrayal, as cruel as it was, reminded me of something vital. I didn't need to beg for love. I didn't need to shrink myself to fit into her broken version of happiness. That night in the cabin, with only the fire crackling and the whisper of trees outside, I promised myself one thing. I would not let her destroy me. The decision came quietly, like the steady snap of a thread that had been pulled too long. I wasn't going to scream, I wasn't going to beg. I was going to end it, with clarity. Over the next week, I began to pay attention. Really pay attention. The late-night texts, the weekend work trips, the names that popped up when her phone flashed too quickly for her to hide. I connected the dots, and soon I had more than suspicion. I had proof. Screenshots, emails, bank statements, even her location history. Everything I needed to know exactly who these men were, when she met them, and how she built her double life while sitting across from me every night. I didn't confront her immediately, no. I let her laugh, let her smirk, let her think she had already broken me. But inside, I was preparing. The confrontation came on a quiet Sunday afternoon. The house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, sunlight pooling across the hardwood floors. Emma sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone, legs tucked under her like she hadn't detonated our marriage days earlier. I walked in calmly, a folder in my hand. Without a word, I placed it on the coffee table in front of her. She glanced up, irritation flickering. "What's this?" I said simply. "Everything." Her brows furrowed as she pulled the folder open. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through the pages, screenshots, emails, bank statements, even her location history. Everything I needed to know exactly who these men were, when she met them, and how she built her double life while sitting across from me every night. I didn't confront her immediately, no. I let her laugh, let her smirk, let her think she had already broken me. But inside, I was preparing. The confrontation came on a quiet Sunday afternoon. The house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, sunlight pooling across the hardwood floors. Emma sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone, legs tucked under her like she hadn't detonated our marriage days earlier. I walked in calmly, a folder in my hand. Without a word, I placed it on the coffee table in front of her. She glanced up, irritation flickering. "What's this?" I said simply. "Everything." Her brows furrowed as she pulled the folder open. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through the pages, screenshots, emails, bank statements, even her location history. Everything I needed to know exactly who these men were, when she met them, and how she built her double life while sitting across from me every night. I didn't get anger, maybe tears, but what I got instead was laughter. She laughed, sharp and bitter, a sound that scraped against my chest like broken glass. "So what? You think this makes you strong? You think you can shame me? You were never enough for me, David. That's why I needed more than you." The words hit hard, harder than any physical blow ever could. But instead of shattering me, they sharpened me. I leaned forward, my eyes locked on hers. "I may not have been enough for you," I said slowly, each word deliberate. "But I will always be enough for myself." Her laughter faltered. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker in her eyes. I reached into the folder one last time and slid a different set of papers across the table. Divorce filings. Already prepared. Already signed by me. Her mouth fell open. "You're serious?" she whispered. I stood tall, my voice calm but final. "I was serious the day I married you. You spat on that. Now I'm serious about walking away." The room fell silent. The woman who once thought she held all the power sat speechless, her world crumbling in her hands.
Emma stared at the divorce papers as if they were written in a language she couldn't understand. Her lips parted, but no sound came out at first. Finally, her voice cracked through the silence. "Wait, you can't be serious. You don't actually want this. We can talk about it, work it out." Her words were shaky, rushed, almost desperate. The same woman who once smirked at my silence, who mocked my worth, was now scrambling to find control. I shook my head slowly. "No, Emma. You wanted options. You wanted freedom. This," I pointed to the papers, "is exactly what freedom looks like." Her eyes filled with a mix of panic and disbelief. She reached for me, but I stepped back. "Don't do this, David," she pleaded. "Don't throw everything away. We've built a life together." I felt my chest tighten. Memories tried to betray me. Her laugh on the day we first met, the warmth of her hand in mine on our wedding day, the quiet mornings we once shared. For a fleeting second, I almost let my heart weaken. But then I remembered her words. "You were never enough." That truth burned away every trace of doubt. "I didn't throw this away," I said firmly. "You did. The day you chose them over us." Her face crumbled, tears streaming down cheeks that once held only arrogance. But there was no satisfaction in watching her break, only clarity. I picked up my duffel bag, the only thing I brought with me. With one last look around the house we once called home, I walked toward the door. And this time, she was the one left in silence. The evening air was cool as I stepped outside, the weight of the duffel bag on my shoulder feeling lighter than the years I had carried inside my chest. Each breath I took filled me with a strange calm, as though the world itself was reminding me I was free. I drove back to the cabin in silence, no radio, no distractions, just the steady hum of the engine and the sound of my own heartbeat. When I arrived, I lit the fireplace, the crackle of burning wood echoing through the small wooden walls. For the first time in what felt like forever, the silence didn't hurt. It healed. I sat by the window, staring at the dark outline of trees swaying in the night wind. I thought about Emma, about the life we had shared, about the betrayal that had torn it apart. For a moment, sadness tugged at me, because once upon a time, I had loved her with everything I had. But betrayal has a way of stripping away illusions. She had chosen lies. She had chosen selfishness. And in losing her, I had found something far more important: myself. I realized then that strength isn't found in holding on to someone who no longer values you. It's found in the courage to walk away. Love cannot survive on half-truths and broken vows, and no matter how much it hurts, letting go is sometimes the only way to heal. I wasn't the man she mocked anymore. I wasn't the man who stayed silent in pain. I was the man who walked away with dignity intact. And that, I knew, was worth more than any vow she had ever broken. If you've ever felt the sting of betrayal, let this story remind you of one truth: you are enough. No amount of lies, no broken promises, no shattered trust can take away your worth. Don't beg for love that refuses to honor you. Don't hold on to someone who has already let go. Walking away isn't weakness, it's courage. And sometimes it's the only way to find yourself again. If this story touched your heart, share it. Someone out there needs to hear that they too deserve better.